Hello everybody, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of Dre in the Kitchen. Today we're going to do one of my all-time favorites. This one was inspired by my recent trip to Puerto Rico, which actually was just a few days ago. But this is my grandmother's version with a little twist, with my little take on it, of Bistec Encebollado. So that is steak with onions. So I get all sorts of questions. What kind of steak? What kind of onions? I use yellow onions. I don't use the sweet onions because to me, they turn to mush and they make the dish a little too sweet. In terms of steak, we buy it here and I find it's called Palomilla. You can get pretty much any thin steak that I pretty much cut into strips or cubes depending. I do not use cube steak. It is not my favorite cut of meat. In fact, I don't ever buy cube steak. So join me in the kitchen and watch how I make my grandmother's version of Bistec Encebollado. So let's get started. Heat up your saucepan. Let's get that nice and hot. So that'll just take a couple of moments. To this, we're going to add about 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Yes, you need that much olive oil. Trust me, it's going to add to that delicious flavor. So you can see I'm coating the bottom of the pan. To this, I have thinly sliced 3 medium onions. You can use more onions, you can use less onions. I used just a yellow onion. Do not use the Vidalias. They're a little too sweet and I think they turn to mush. That's just my opinion on there. They turn to mush. These hold up beautifully because we're going to cook this for quite a while. So now that your pan is nice and hot, let's go ahead and we're going to start with our onions. Ooh, you hear that sizzle? Yes, that's what you're looking for. It may look like a lot of onions, but I promise you they will wilt down and add gorgeous, gorgeous flavor. To this, I'm gonna add some kosher salt, 2 teaspoons just to start, because we're gonna add our homemade adobo later. If you don't have my homemade adobo recipe, I'll go ahead and add that in the iCard above. So we're just gonna stir this in. This is gonna take a few minutes. We're not looking for browning, we're looking to just sweat these down and have them reduced. Start with 5 minutes, see how they go. I'm not going to cover this, but I am coating it so that all the extra virgin olive oil coats all the onions. Doesn't that look beautiful? So let this work its magic, and in about 5 minutes, I'll come back and we'll continue. About 4 minutes have passed. They're beautifully wilted. I'm gonna go ahead, I have 5 cloves of chopped garlic here. I like to just chop my own garlic. Very easy. You could also use a zester, a microplane, and zest that in if you prefer. To this, we're gonna add freshly ground black pepper. I'm gonna start out with a big heaping teaspoon. Teaspoon and a half, that's just my preference. Adjust seasoning according to your likes. And taste buds. See how nice and wilted everything is getting? This is in preparation. Now the garlic, you're just gonna cook it until it's a little fragrant. I'd say probably no more than 60 seconds before we put the steak in. So growing up, I would come home from school and my grandmother would have this cooking, or my mom would have this cooking. And this is very nostalgic for me. Just the aroma of the onions alone is delicious. I promise you, it's delicious. Okay, so to this, I went ahead and not cubed up, that's the wrong word. I just sliced up the steaks, and let me show you how I do this. This is just me. As you can see, I'm putting them in. There is no right or wrong way. This is just how I start the process. I put it over the onions, because then I'm gonna add my adobo. Which is why I did not put a lot of salt, because the adobo has some salt in it. You can always adjust seasonings later. Just do not oversalt your food, because then, I'm sorry, there's no way to undo that in this case. Look how beautiful this meat is. Isn't it gorgeous? So there's some connective tissues, but because this is gonna, what I guess is a slight braise, it's gonna stay in here for probably about 30 to 45 minutes. So there is my steak. Let me just move this out of the way. To that, this is my homemade adobo. Of course, like I said, if you don't have your own. Use whatever you prefer, but I'll go ahead and link the recipe to mine, the video. We're gonna start out about 2 heaping teaspoons. We can adjust seasoning at the very, very end. This may look like a lot, but I do not use a lot of salt in my homemade adobo. Okay, so that's probably a tablespoon, let's just say. Now, we're gonna just mix it all around. Get it beautifully coated. Turn it around a little bit. The onions are gonna get to know the little bit of steak here. There we are. Gorgeous. Now, let's add in, I put in red wine vinegar. Is red wine vinegar the only way you can do this? No. I have a cousin that does not like vinegar at all. So we've learned to adapt this recipe using lime juice. A bit of lime and lemon juice. But for me, we're gonna add in, this is red wine vinegar. It's about a 1/2 cup to 3/4 of a cup. Yes, I know it looks like a lot, but it cooks down so beautifully, tenderizes gorgeously. And then my little secret ingredient, this is not my grandmother's way, is because I want this to fall apart, is I have a cup here of homemade chicken stock. Now this is gonna look, oh my goodness, that is a lot of liquid. I don't know, trust the process. I have been making this method of Bistec Encebollado for many, many years. So now I'm gonna let that come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, then I'm gonna reduce it to a simmer and I'm gonna cover it. So cover it and let it go. I would say 30 minutes first, check it, and then we'll come back together and we're gonna taste test it. That is when you can adjust your seasoning. You can add a little more pepper, you can add a little more adobo, you can add different things and we'll talk about it when we get there. But as you can see, this, by the way, this smells amazing. It's starting to bubble. I'm gonna let it bubble a little more. I'm gonna lower it, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cover it, and I'll see you as soon as I test it in 30 minutes. So it's been a little more than 30 minutes. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Oh, look at the beautiful steam. So I did go ahead and test this just moments ago. And guess what? It needs absolutely nothing except just a little more time. So as you can see, our meat is beautifully done. It's starting to fall apart. I love it where it shreds a little bit more. So I'm gonna put this back and look, the juice, the delicious juice. Y'all, you just don't even know. So I'm gonna cover this back up. I'm gonna leave it for about another 15, I'd say 20 to 30 minutes while I go ahead and make the rice. And if you haven't made my fluffy white rice, I'll put that recipe up here as well. And I will see you when we serve this on the table. OMG, y'all, it smells so good in this house. Finally, we get to taste the food. My house smells amazing. Your home should also smell amazing. So here we are. I took a better picture. This is amazing. So y'all, you know I gotta go in and just taste a little bit of the rice on its own, right? Great chewiness. The meat is so tender, it falls apart with just a fork. Don't even need a knife. Let's see. The one thing I am missing is an avocado. I couldn't find them. They're all too ripe. They're not ripe enough yet, I mean. So that is it. This is how you put it all together. I cannot wait until you make this in your home. Make sure you comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. This, y'all, I'm about to tear it up. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot more recipes coming, all inspired and influenced from my trip to Puerto Rico. Bye, everybody.